All right, so the next movement we're going to go through is kind of a big posterior chain dominant or hip dominant movement, the RDL. So my starting point for this exercise would just be a kind of a two dumbbell RDL, just holding two dumbbells at the side. So pretty simple way to load the movement. I would usually tell athletes to start with their feet about shoulder width. Nice tall posture. Their goal is to kind of keep their posture rock solid from head to hips throughout the whole movement as they try to reach their tailbone back as far as possible. I usually tell them to drop the weights, try to aim for about mid shin level, and then stand tall to the top. So all the movement is coming from the hips. The knees will have a slight bend, but notice how my shins just stay vertical throughout the entire movement. So that's kind of what separates an RDL from a squat, is that the shins do not move. It's all just hip movement as the exercise goes on. But that's kind of my entry level exercise there, would be just two dumbbells at the sides. My first regression would just be to lose one of the dumbbells and hold a goblet dumbbell at the chest. So this kind of forces the athlete to activate their core with that goblet dumbbell out in front of them a little bit, and just take some of the load away. So same thing, they'd still be executing the same movement, just holding less weight and at the chest instead. Second regression would just be some kind of hip hinge patterning drills. So two drills I kind of like to use with athletes. One being the dowel, the head back and crack dowel, that kind of teaches them what their spine is doing throughout the movement. So again, I kind of tell them head, back, and crack must be touching the dowel at all times, and their goal is to hinge back as far as possible without losing any point of contact with the dowel on the way down. So they're trying to think almost butt bump a wall that's maybe 2 feet behind them as they maintain those 3 points throughout. Another one, also a hinge patterning drill, is I'll have them just stand, like maybe start about 4 inches away from a wall and just progressively try to butt bump the wall. As they butt bump it, if they still can, they progressively kind of take little steps out away from the wall, maybe an inch at a time, just really trying to reach back and butt bump the wall. So two kind of hinge patterning drills. Finally, my third regression would just be a glute bridge from the floor. So we're kind of adding points of contact, points of stability, and just taking some of the complexity out of it, because there's less joints to have to deal with during the movement. So really, they can focus on just what their hips are doing. There's not as much core, still plenty of core involved, but not quite as much demand as a standing hip hinge, and the knees are kind of totally taken out of it as well. So really, they're just trying to, again, maintain their core position, that stacked core position between pelvis and rib cage, as they bridge and then drop their tailbone right back down to the floor. So very similar movement, but much more simplified from the floor. So if I were to progress, first thing we go to is just a barbell RDL. So after our two dumbbell RDL, then we progress to a barbell RDL. So same exact movement. Goal with the barbell just being to keep the bar as close to the shins as possible as we descend and ascend to the top. We don't want that bar to drift out in front of us. It should stay close the entire time, but definitely a way to add plenty of external load with the RDL. From there, making it more unstable, we go to a kickstand RDL. So how that looks is basically one foot stays flat, the other one kind of lines up with the heel and pops up on the toes just for balance. All of my weight is in my flat foot, so it kind of begins to feel like a single leg RDL. Just get a little bit of balance from those toes. So same movement, keeping the bar close the whole way down, but feels much more like a single leg RDL. And then finally, we would go totally single leg RDL. So removing points of contact, making it more unstable. Single leg RDL, again, keeping the bar close, trying to maintain a straight line from head to heels throughout the whole movement. I should look kind of like a teeter-totter as I come to the bottom. My whole head to heel stays relative to each other throughout the whole movement. So that's those are my progressions and regressions for the RDL.